Fine friends and Trinket fans, I'm Jess, and this is Trinket Picnic, a podcast where we talk all things small, whimsical, impractical, collectible, lovable, and obsessable, and we take the deepest dives possible with, of course, plenty of side quests as we wander through the history and lore of life's little things. And what's a trinket? Well, that's for you to decide, but today we are continuing our flocked animal figurine saga as we dive into Sylvanian Families Part 2.
Sylvanian families. They come from far and near, a brand new baby.
So if you haven't listened to Part 1 of this Sylvanian saga, please go back and check it out, as my past self apparently had too much to say about Sylvanian families' history, and the episode about this toy ended up being twice as long as I had intended, and thus I've decided to break up the recording into 2 episodes. In Part 1, we covered the first 25 years of Sylvanian families / calico critters history. My favorite parts include how the toy came to be known by these 2 names, and how the creator, a Japanese company called Epic, navigated the early distribution waters. We talk a lot about the original American debut of the toy, including the downfall of the old American company, Coleco, who tried to debut them and failed. And we talk a lot about the consequences of this failure. But it's not all doom and gloom, because it's also in the first episode that we discussed the huge successes across the pond with the toy's launch in the UK, including an amazing stop-motion animation, which is where I met my spirit animal, Grandma Moonshine. Love her.
"I'll take some of my strawberry champagne," said Grandmother Pearl. Mother Crystal tried not to groan. Grandmother Pearl was the worst cook in Sylvania.
And we talk about the toy's incredible rise in popularity through Flair Leisure Products, which distributed Sylvanian families in the UK and left an indelible stamp on our fine furry friends. And of course, as this is a Japanese toy, we reviewed not only lots of Japanese exclusive releases, including Hello, Sylvanian Families video games, but also the opening of many Sylvanian Families in-person experiences, like restaurants, amusement parks, musicals, all that you can visit if you find yourself in the land of the rising sun. We closed out Part 1 with a review of Epic's pivotal business decisions in the late 2000s that have directly led to where the company stands today. Oh, and of course, it's a picnic, so we ate plenty of snacks. Thus, without further ado, let's hear what Past Me has to say and get crackin' with Part 2. Wow, another decade gone. We are here, finally, 2010. We are really speeding toward present day, but let's quickly recap our path to get a grip on where we are. It's 2010. Sylvanian Families is 25 years old. They've come through a rocky toy launch with a bankrupt company and an entire name change, and then finally some semblance of distribution control in America, along with the extreme ups and downs in the UK, along with pockets of mostly isolated fans across the rest of the world. In Japan, though, specifically, of course, the birthplace of the toy, we saw a huge push to move Sylvanian Families outside of just their packaged figures and sets to sort of IRL, opening several attractions and in-person events, releasing video games and also animes, as well as musicals. And no, I didn't talk about the 90-minute Japanese musical in 2004, which was produced as a part of Epic's 20th anniversary of the toy's launch. Likewise, I glossed over the live show event in the UK in 2007 for their own 20th anniversary celebration. I mean, of course, these types of things happened, and what kid wouldn't want to meet their favorite Sylvanian in person? I mean, besides me, of course, who once again would have been weirded out by the strange elongated proportions and creepy hands. But, dear Lord, I digress with side quest after side quest. If we don't get to the current era, or like within a few years of it soon, I just might slip into a psychological Sylvanian no man's land and be lost forever. So let's press on. Oh, but first, I'm going to have more of some treats. This is some strawberry gummy candy, and because really, what's a picnic without some kind of sweet treat? I'm pretending, of course, that the sugar mango drink isn't a treat already. For Japanese gummies, I'm trying to get this package open. My favorite is usually some kind of grape flavor, but the store was out, so I went with the next best thing, which for me is strawberry. Let's give it a try. Okay. Yum. Sweet, sugary, artificial. No, it's quite tasty. I love Japanese gummies. All right. So, the 2010s. We are now beginning to see a shift, a big shift, toward Epic streamlining their toy. You might even say, or I would say some people would say, tightening control over the toy line. Let's not beat around the bush here. The first 5 years of this new decade are truly marked by this reality. In the UK in 2013, after an excellent run distributing the Sylvanians, Flair in the UK confirms that the rights of the toys are being transferred to the newly made Epic UK. And sure enough, on the 1st of January of 2014, Epic UK begins distributing the toys. That means that by the middle of the 2010s, Epic has, for all practical purposes, taken over global production and distribution firsthand. They also formally announce their strategy to standardize Sylvanian families worldwide. Their initial aim, in their words, to make every collector able to buy every item in their local shops. This was Epic's global strategy. And with that strategy comes some very specific marketing, which means that new animations and internet content begin coming out. Now, I'm not trying to be cynical here, but the CEO himself has stated that these animations are important marketing campaigns, and probably as adults we know this, right? Even if deep inside, like the child that lives in our hearts just doesn't want it to be so. But the use of TV shows and movies has, of course, been long used to sell toys, not just in Japan, but around the world. So in 2017, a new animation series comes out. This will also be the year, by the way, that Epic changes their American distribution company name from International Playthings to Epic Everlasting Play, which is just another rung on their ladder to streamline the brand, right? The 2017 animated television series called Sylvanian Families Mini-Stories, sometimes called mini episodes, and the first season consists of 12 episodes. They would also later release, I think, 2 more seasons, or maybe 3 more seasons, I think just the following 3 years, 2018, 2019, and 2020. These 3D animations were originally debuted on Japanese TV, but many of them are now available on the official Sylvanian Families YouTube channel. These animations are definitely aimed at very little kids. The animation is decent, and the characters and settings are basically identical to the toys and playsets that you can buy. The character voices, at least on the UK version, they're a bit much for me. A little bit like too high-pitched. They become a little bit grating. But the short storylines can be surprisingly funny. Not all of them, by the way, but a few. So can be surprisingly funny and a little quirky. For instance, like the episode featuring a flash mob organized by Stella Chocolate's boyfriend. Or, oh my gosh, there's the episode that features the little playhouse, the Sweet Raspberry Home playset, which is Freya Chocolate's little like room playhouse. And in that episode, a bunch of the babies think about what their dream room would be. And Freya and her dad kind of transform this playhouse into each of the babies' dream room. You know, one baby wants a room full of books. Another wants like a room full of pillows to have a pillow fight. Another just wants it to be filled with snacks. I can relate to all of these things. I would want all of those things, but probably the most hilarious room request is from Apricot Sandy's. She's a little baby from the striped cat family. She requests a room of nothing. Like literally, it's called a room of nothing. And she lies down on the totally empty floor and just basks in the nothingness and like sighs and is like, wow, I'm so happy. The character literally says that. That really got me. I just like that in a toy line that is pretty much built upon the principles of maximalism with all the accessories. There's a character who's actually longing to just lie down in an empty room. Yeah, I love it. During this time, there were also at least 3 special web animations released, starting in 2016 with The Treasure of Sylvanian Village, or, if you were in America, The Treasure of Calico Village. Yes, they released the same animations, but with new American voiceover and with the Calico names. As far as I can tell, the animations are nearly identical, but the voiceover script seems to have been translated by like a different person than the one who did the British one. Other than the expected Americanizations, like, you know, substituting the word festival for fate or belle for Freya, there are also little tweaks. They are very small, okay? Almost kind of, to me, unimportant. Just watch the first 2 minutes of each animation, and if you compare closely, you'll catch them. For example, when talking about the stars that he sees out at sea, Freya/Belle's grandfather says in a letter to her that they are his favorite treasure. Whereas in the Sylvanian version, the grandfather says that the stars are something that I will always treasure. These differences are tiny and probably just the result of different translators making different decisions with their translation. It happens all the time when you have a non-English language piece of media being translated both into American English and into British English. And although it isn't uncommon to have a British version and then an American version of a TV show or movie, it's kind of amazing how similar these versions actually are, and yet they took the time to completely re-record it and make the tiniest of changes. I wonder how much of this decision to change it is because of the Calico name, the American Calico name, and how much of it is just because they want to better localize the franchise. Obviously, we see these kinds of changes in a lot of the book publications, given, you know, spelling and random vocab differences between British and American English. And also, British and American rights are often sold separately. But to change the script in so many ways, albeit in seemingly small, inconsequential ways, well, I don't know. I'm not going to lie. At first, it just kind of made me chuckle, but then it kind of charmed me. Like, I started to really feel all of the effort that Epic was putting into the brand with getting it out there to everyone and making it sort of relevant to all of the populations that were at least important to them market-wise. They were really spending the time and the money to make committed fans across the world. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the style. You probably already expected me to say this. They're a little bit similar to the animations from the 2007 versions, but because there's been basically like 10 years of advancements in CGI technology, the characters are more soft and fuzzier looking. The sets are more detailed in, the way that the toys are detailed. It's all basically a lot more reminiscent of the actual toy line, which I do appreciate. And once again, I'm not the target audience. I'm sure little kids love this stuff and they're a lot more accustomed to this kind of animation. Whereas I grew up on, I don't know, old Tom and Jerry and that cartoon, The Gummy Bears and Rugrats, Pinky and the Brain, right? So that's sort of where my aesthetic leanings goes towards. Would I love to see Epic put out a more unique animation, something stop motion, or even just like a uniquely done 2D cartoon? Absolutely. Actually, that reminds me, in July of this year, 2025, Sylvanian families were featured in a Japanese magazine called Mo. In the magazine, there are some behind-the-scenes development sketches for the figures, as well as a double-page spread on the Sylvanian parks, containing lots of illustrations, and most of them are drawn in this soft, delicate, whimsical style. It actually reminds me a lot of that animated movie, I think it was from the early 2000s, called Ernest and Celestine. Imagine a Sylvanian TV series or movie done in that style. Oh my gosh, please go and find a trailer for Ernest and Celestine and you'll know exactly what I mean. I mean, just that style plus the sweetness of the Sylvanian universe and all of the family and character detail, and maybe perhaps a bit of the Ernest and Celestine quirkiness. And man, you've got something that I think everyone would love. Also, the magazine has a bunch of these amazing fan art spotlights. The art is done by some professional Japanese artists and illustrators, and I was even shocked to find that one of my favorite illustrators, Yumi Kitagishi, had a bit of a spotlight in there. I guess all I'm saying is that Sylvanian families as a whole is an extremely whimsical and highly detailed and wholesome universe. And I think that so much more could be done with the brand when it comes to this extra media than, I don't know, all of the recent generic CGI animations and like kind of lifeless print media. And much of that print media is just pulled directly from official YouTube videos, which are decent enough, as I've mentioned, as far as writing goes, but just a bit uninspired as far as style. If they were always just going to do everything as far as animations and books and any stationery or whatever with just photos of actual figures, then fine. Okay, I know that they're trying to promote the dolls and accessories after all. And I'm sure that most of the money and attention, it goes towards developing new families, right? And new sets. I think it was actually in this magazine issue that I read that it takes years to develop a new family, many years. So I'm assuming that while they're developing these molds for new figures and the toy sets, that they're probably using some kind of 3D model and that they are then in some way reusing those models in the animations and print media. So probably, yeah, this CG style is perhaps just convenient. But as a budding fan, and yes, I'm admitting it now, I'm becoming a fan, I just can't help but wish the whimsy of the Sylvanian universe was better and more uniquely channeled into their print and video media. Like, perhaps you can slightly slow down on all the figure and family releases and the blind bags and everything, and maybe focus on the other media for a bit, build up the stories, make the world seem a little bit less plastic. But I just get this feeling that they're on a certain trajectory now. And I don't know, I see the homogenization of the brand, that nowadays it just does seem to involve a more cutifying, is that a word? Cutifying, or sort of pastelling of the toy line overall. And in the years starting in 2020, up until present day, we'll see that fans are beginning to have, let's call them feelings about this new direction. A direction that would even lead the world's #1 collector of Sylvanian families to sell off his entire collection and quit the hobby in 2023, or at least play a part in his decision. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself again. We need to close out the decade of the 2010s, which has largely been about Epic implementing their global strategy, streamlining the toy abroad, and just engaging fans. Tons of engagement in all sort of sectors. Speaking of engagement, during this decade, Japan will not only get more musical theater, but they'll also supply an education license to the children's English learning platform, DreamPie. There are also Sylvanian families' indoor playrooms in Japan. These are meant for like very small children, like toddlers to about kindergarten age. And from what I can tell, most of them, if not all, end up being closed by the time the pandemic begins. In Japan, there's also several stores and eateries opened, mostly inside malls like Parco. But their big project, outside of the many figures and sets and everything I've just talked about, is the Sylvanian Park, opening in 2018. This theme park is still open today, and it's easily accessible from what I can tell from Tokyo. From videos and pictures that I was able to find online, this place definitely seems less worn than the Greenpa Park. And while there doesn't seem to be any like rides, like roller coasters or things like that, there are lots of life-size buildings and vehicles and large figures spread out over the park that look super cute. Yes, even a misty forest fairy. Unfortunately for me, the mascots running around at this park are still using those long-fingered gloves. Yeah, so yikes. It's hard to tell how much of this place like can actually be interacted with. Like much of it is basically, or at least looks just kind of like a giant set piece. But I'm sure committed fans would really get a kick out of it. Lots of Instagrammable photo ops for sure. And oh yeah, and apparently there is a diorama on display using the actual toys that recreates the town of Sylvanian Village. And honestly, I would probably just visit the place just for that. Holy moly, look at this. We've made it. A new decade is starting. And the world, unbeknownst to everyone at the time, is about to go on full lockdown insanity mode. At this point, basically everything was beginning to line up for Epic in their worldwide domination plan. I want to emphasize that Epic has done a lot of work thus far, where we are in our story. They've made a lot of specific decisions to bring them to the position they are now in. And because of this approaching lockdown, their products, along with thousands of others, by the way, are about to be catapulted into a new era as humans of all ages are trapped indoors and looking for something beautiful and comforting to focus on, something perhaps collectible that you can share with your friends online. So that's right, Sylvanian families / calico critters, they're about to get a whole new, completely obsessed audience. Man, oh man, did the world begin the 2020s with a bang. The COVID pandemic really did slingshot Sylvanian families to where it is today. Sure, as I've said, Epic had done a lot of deliberate work to ready the brand for success. All that work was like them building the success slingshot, if you will. They built the slingshot, they loaded the slingshot, they even pulled the sling back and took careful aim. But I really do think it was the lockdown that really let it rip, launching the brand into today's successes. Although it's impossible to know exact figures, it seems as though tens of thousands of new fans were created during the pandemic. As we've talked about, this toy is nostalgic, it's wholesome, and above all, cozy and comforting. And of course, totally collectible and playable. If this doesn't sum up the needs of both children and parents and adults, I mean, frankly, everyone during the pandemic, I don't know what does. People of all ages and backgrounds begin collecting, posting pictures, talking about their collections online, and not just Sylvanian families, but many other toys as well. People then begin hunting for figures and sets that they want or think that they need. And some people also begin reselling. Others also begin to make custom clothes, accessories for their figures, and even modifying the figures themselves. Fans are starting to create their own online content with the dolls. We'll say that some of the content is, well, let's call it dramatic. Yes, there is lots of drama involved, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Because first, I want to talk about this interesting confluence of circumstances and players. So first we have the old school original fans. They are now adults. They're having their own kids. They are thinking about Sylvanians again because now they're parents. And from 2020 and on, they're stuck at home and looking for something not only for their kids to do, but also they're looking for something comforting and stress relieving for themselves. Sylvanians are perfect. Then you have the new fans. We'll talk about them a little bit more soon, but by and large, these are adults, many of them college age. They're beginning to see countless videos and pictures of these toys as they're, at home scrolling on their phones. Many of them have no actual nostalgic connection to this toy. They're just simply connecting to them because they are whimsical, because they are cute in sort of a cozy retro way. And these figures are collectible, customizable, just like all the other little trinkets that everyone is beginning to buy and hang on their bags and show off. And these little figures can also be used in funny, satirical content on the internet, which is the thing everyone is now consuming via social media and in large quantities because of the lockdown. After all, we humans are kind of living at this time, during a bizarre sort of funhouse, almost unbelievable situation. It's like, so satire in a way becomes like this comforting way to not only entertain ourselves and let off steam, but also to process like what our lives have become. Lastly, other than the new and the old fans, you have this other player. You have Epic, finally truly poised to make their global strategy a full reality. They're looking to create a more unified existence of the toy with, smooth, organized distribution in all of their current and future markets. This is basically what they have been tirelessly working for since 1985. This strategy has undoubtedly made the toy more successful and Epic more powerful, to put it simply. I mean, they have more control over their toy line than they ever have had before. Indeed, in 2022, Epic Everlasting Play announced that after 35 years of the toy in North America, they were standardizing many of the names to then match the rest of the world. Now, they had already been making changes in Japan, adding the Western names to some of the characters, including Freya, who, as I've mentioned before, had only been officially known in Japan as Chocolate Rabbit Girl. So not only would the name Freya come to be known in Japan, like officially, but Freya would also begin to replace Belle's name in America. On the Calico Critters website, it stated, and you can still find it today, it says, quote, "When Calico Critter fans grow older and meet people from the other countries, we want them to be able to reminisce together about the fun they had with these toys as children, and they are more likely to recognize that common ground if our characters have the same name in every country." End quote. I have to admit that it does make a lot of sense. I mean, there are clear benefits to standardization. I mean, just look at all this history that I've reviewed. The confusion and murkiness was only made worse by the fractured distribution and marketing of the toy in the first 3 decades. It is easy to claim that their global strategy has now worked, that Sylvanian Families has become a global toy juggernaut, now selling over 200 million figurines in over 70 countries. And during the pandemic years, these players, Epic and the various Sylvanian fans, they collide together on the internet, and things begin to get, well, let's just say that like with any kind of worldwide domination also comes drama. So does that mean that we can now talk about Sylvanian drama? Or how about ISIS in Sylvania? Or what about that unsanctioned media I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast? Yes, and yes. Let's now get into all of it. Okay. Oh, but first, I've got one last snack. This one, let me reach for it here. Oh, yes. Calbee honey plum potato chips. Yes. So I picked this out because, number one, Calbee is an iconic Japanese snack company. And number two, honey plum flavor is kind of just as interesting and bizarre to me as the next things that I'm about to talk about. So let's go ahead and give these a try. Let me get the bag open. Okay. All right. Admittedly, I probably eat potato chips like twice a year, so I'm probably not the best judge. Yeah, a little strange, but nice combination of salty and sweet. There could be a little bit more salt, though. I think would be even better. Okay. Yeah, a little strange, but you know, there's a lot of little strange things in life, and I kind of like that. So, let's get into it. As Sylvanian Families' popularity spread, the figures began to be used in, well, we'll call it ways that Epic probably did not intend. And while it's true that my journey into Sylvania and its history has no doubt endeared me to these little critters, like I am definitely now fully considering which set I'm going to buy first, I can see that they kind of do set themselves up for parody. The fact remains that the Sylvanian universe is mostly a bucolic utopia. The company itself says that strife doesn't exist in any real way. I mean, the main problems in a lot of these animations are, you know, someone forgetting to order a birthday cake or another person getting stage fright, right? So the stakes of this world are not super high. Also, the designs are smooth, round, soft, and as I mentioned, increasingly pastel colored. This is a gentle, nostalgic world, and it's probably what everyone was looking for during the pandemic years. Because of this sort of clear, just one-sided, like unrelenting pleasantness, it takes almost no effort to parody this toy and its world. The first big controversy that I was able to find that involved Sylvanian Families was something that happened 10 years ago in 2015 in the UK. An art installation titled quote, ISIS threatened Sylvania, end quote, by someone named Mimsy. I guess that's the artist name of a woman named Miriam Elia. It struck, let's call it, an exacting and very sensitive chord, not only with the British public, but also with British law enforcement. The work was initially a part of a London exhibition highlighting freedom of expression. Now, if you go on the internet and type in ISIS in Sylvania, you will immediately be flooded with tons of images of the artwork. And because it is a collection of visual art, I do actually highly recommend that you seek it out. But let me just explain a bit for those who haven't seen it. The original artwork consisted of 7 lightbox dioramas. So the toys are set up as you might see them in some of their advertisements or catalogs. The Sylvanian families are, say, enjoying a picnic or a day at the beach. Or there's a scene where there's girls in a classroom with a happy teacher. The difference is that in Mimsy's artwork, in her dioramas, there are also black-clad figures looming in the background, complete with miniature assault rifles and black ISIS flags, clearly ready to do what we all unfortunately know they're going to do. The jihadis in the artwork they're called Mysis, which I thought was both clever, also a bit mean to all the Sylvanian mice characters. Although I will say, if you look closely, based on the ear shape, some of the terrorists are clearly cats and rabbits and maybe even a koala. So they're not all mice. Ironically enough, the installation was about freedom of expression, and it was in fact removed from the exhibition because law enforcement were worried that the, quote, potentially inflammatory content might create some security problems. The police eventually told the exhibition or the exhibit organizers that they would have to pay £36,000, I think it was, for extra security, which, as you can imagine, was totally cost prohibitive. The artwork was removed. The curators and the artists were, of course, super shocked and upset. A spokesperson for the gallery said that the Westminster police had approached them with the security concern and that they basically had no choice but to remove the work. No one could or wanted to pay the extra security fee. It's actually kind of wild that Sylvanian families were involved in such a case, a case in which an exhibition about artistic free speech, an artwork that heavily featured Sylvanian families, was so inflammatory, so provocative, that it actually had to be removed. The police seem to really believe that this artwork could provoke a terrorist attack. Then again, you have to remember, this is the mid-2010s, okay? The Islamic State's shock and power are rising. In 2014, they explode onto the international news as they carry out not only their genocide against the Yazidi people and also the Iraqi Turkmen, but also their total and unrelenting persecution and violence against lots of other people, Christians, Shia Muslims, Sabians, and the total brutality toward journalists and aid workers, which at that time was kind of unheard of. So by August of 2014, the UK's terror alert is raised to severe. So this is a pretty intense time. The fear of jihadi retaliation is a very real fear happening in people's lives. It's not something happening far away. So maybe it's not surprising that the police and other law enforcement were basically freaking out. But to ban a contemporary artwork at a free speech exhibition, an artwork that is mocking and pushing against an ideology and a group which is fundamentally against free speech, well, wow, yeah, the irony just doesn't stop. And remember, all this drama is surrounding basically their photographs that feature Sylvanian families that the artist herself said that she played with a lot as a child. And so for her, they were sort of this perfect depiction of innocence. And that innocence will be used again a few years later by another woman, albeit in a little bit more lighthearted, but no less satirical way. Oh, and for those interested, actually, in 2024, the artist Mimsy, she was able to exhibit her photos of her provocative Sylvanian family works in New York. She even sold a limited print run of the photographs, which were titled Isis in Sylvania. I think there was even like a board book made. So at least it sounds like this artwork was able to live on. I mean, what can I say? I am a total sucker for radical free speech, provocative expressions of freedom, and I think that Sylvanian families with their details and their playability are the perfect tools for those expressions. And speaking of freedom of expression, there's been another show in town the last few years freely expressing themselves. Well, freely up until they were apparently sued by Epic earlier this year. Thea von Engelbrechten, an Irish woman in her 20s, is the mastermind behind the TikTok and Instagram Sylvanian drama accounts, which, since 2021, have gained over 2.5 million followers to her hilarious soap opera sagas featuring sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and everything in between. These little videos are chaotic, and yet the comedic timing, including the cuts and the zooms and the text on the screen, everything just comes together to make something. It's sort of like a slightly deranged Redwall. Yeah, a Redwall soap opera gone wild. So really, what's not to love? Perhaps it doesn't have the cultural or political weight of ISIS in Sylvania, but it's interesting to me that these Sylvanian drama videos are essentially using Sylvanian figures for the same reason. Their utopian innocence is pitted against total dysfunction and destruction. And, well, that's provocative and ironic. And, I don't know, in the case of Sylvanian drama, wildly funny. Covering tons of plot lines and multi-video story arcs, this show, oh, and yes, I'm calling it a show, okay? It covers subjects like bullying and toxic relationships, eating disorders, self-image and dieting. There's infidelity, of course, drug use, alcoholism, murder, imprisonment. Oh, there's even a dash of religious cults in there. And also, importantly, the videos are all set to some impeccably chosen song and splashed with lots of hilarious slang and emoji-laden text. All of these videos are basically a minute long and totally addictive. My favorites tend to involve sleepovers that go sideways, like in maybe hostage situations that end with the victim like totally going nuts and getting married or like getting a tattoo or something. In a 2024 interview, the creator said that she started the Sylvanian drama accounts as a joke, but that it quickly gained a following. She also says that a lot of her fans say that it kind of reminds them how they used to play with toys as a child, just with like more adult humor mixed in. Now, while I do think a major part of the account's popularity is the fact that it pairs Sylvanian families with outlandish adult humor, at least part of its appeal is that the storylines take wildly chaotic turns that you will never predict. The plots get twisted and then reversed upon themselves and then like jump off a cliff that you never even knew was there. It has a sort of consistent type of chaos, very similar to daytime soap operas. So when you pair that with a nostalgic, comforting toy in a time when the rise of trinkets and small collectible things is like unrelenting and in our face all the time on social media, well, you get this hugely popular masterpiece. Unfortunately, after a few years of a good run and a couple of videos with high-profile sponsors and also merch being sold, Sylvanian Drama was sued by Epic for copyright and trademark infringement, mainly because the figures were used in advertising content without their permission. The lawsuit was filed in New York and in April of 2025, and the nature of the suit basically was named as property rights, specifically copyrights, with the cause being copyright infringement. Some articles have cited that Epic claims that the unauthorized videos were also damaging to their brand and their corporate image. This whole lawsuit really introduces a ton of questions about freedom of expression, creative freedom, and also a brand's integrity, their image and rights, and the power and might that a fan base wields. Although I wasn't actually introduced to Sylvanians through this wonderful show, I really hope that it can continue, because based on the many comments that these videos get, along with the discourse on the Sylvanian family subreddit, it's really clear that many people became Sylvanian fans and collectors specifically because of Sylvanian drama content. I've certainly spent more time watching Sylvanian drama than any of their CG animations. By spring of 2025, the original place to buy Sylvanian drama merch, which I think was sylvaniandrama.com, was up for sale. And on August 7th, the Sylvanian Drama Instagram account announced that it would be changing the name and profile of the account, and also solicited new name changes. My favorite suggestions were definitely Desperate Mousewives and also Anthropomorphic Animal Figures Drama. But it does look like, as of the beginning of September, a new account name has now been changed to Gossip Squirrels. And the profile pic is a bunch of Playmobil guinea pigs and I think maybe a couple squirrels gathered around a cup of tea. And yes, there are certainly plenty of us ready for some more tea. And we might just get it, because luckily it looks like that in August of 2025, Epic dropped the lawsuit against von Engelbrechten. That probably means that they reached some kind of settlement, although I wasn't able to find very many details, as far as I can tell, neither side has really divulged anything. So it is wonderful to see that most of the original content is still up. I don't know if in the future it's still going to be Sylvanians, or is it going to change over to Playmobil toys? I don't know. But I can't wait to see what happens, and I'll definitely be checking in. Man, was this like maybe the legal case of the year? I don't know. In fact, Epic has been increasingly litigious, most notably in their efforts in going after counterfeit figurines. So not so much content creators. It seems as though most of their lawsuits have been aimed at counterfeiters, mostly produced in China and then shipped all over the world. In 2021, there was even a 5-year-long court case finally decided in Epic's favor. And during the case, Epic was they were forced to prove that their designs were fundamentally different from the 1980s Mapletown character designs. Counterfeiting and confusion over lookalikes is a huge problem in the trinket world and in the world of collecting in general. Companies defending their trademarks and copyright often ultimately help the consumer understand what is legitimate and what is fake. But of course, there is always the question, like, where is the line? How far does a company go to protect the image of their product? When does their protection turn into maybe greed or unnecessary control, which then sometimes leads to stifling creativity. We've seen this exact issue also play out in the custom clothes arena. In December of 2024, Epic released a statement which basically said two things. It told customers to use caution when buying these handmade products, and it urged the Sylvanian family's custom clothes makers to stop selling. Actually, you know what? The notice that they posted honestly wasn't that long, so I'm going to actually read it because this notice was talked about a lot online when it first went up in December of 2024, and I think there are a lot of interesting issues at play here, and this notice is kind of a good representation of the complexity. So let me just bring it up here so I can read from it. And I'll save the link in the notes so you can find it as well, for as long as it stays up anyway. Now, of course, this was posted in Japanese, and I translated it through Google and also through DeepL. The translations are pretty similar, but I do think the DeepL one reads a little bit better in terms of clear English, so I'm going to read from that one. Okay, here it is. It begins with some official headings and salutations, saying important notice to our valued customers, and December 16th, 2024, Epic Co. Ltd. Important notice regarding sales of handmade items. Recently, we have confirmed multiple instances of individuals selling handmade clothing and accessories, herein referred to as handmade items. They've been marked as for Sylvanian families or using photos of Sylvanian families' dolls wearing them. Our service center has received numerous reports regarding this matter. We have absolutely no connection to these handmade items. Furthermore, as these handmade items do not meet our quality and safety standards, we are deeply concerned that they may pose a risk to our customers. We urge our customers to exercise extreme caution when engaging in transactions involving these handmade items. Please note that we cannot be held responsible for any disadvantages, damages, or other issues arising from the purchase, transfer, or other dealings involving handmade items. Request to individuals creating personal works. Selling personal creations using Sylvanian families' trademarks or photographs of Sylvanian families' dolls without our permission constitutes infringement of our trademark and copyright rights. We may take legal action against such sales. To avoid unnecessary trouble, if you create works matching our products, please refrain from selling them and enjoy them for personal use only. And that's where it ends. So now I want to mention one thing. I said that Epic has been increasingly litigious in recent years, and that isn't only because of them suing others, but they've also been in legal hot water themselves. In 2023, I believe, in North America, or at least in the USA and Canada, there was a pretty big recall incident regarding the small Calico Critters pacifier and bottle accessories. Epic recalled all of the Calico Critters figures and sets that were sold with these accessories, which ended up being like 3.2 million units. Obviously, most of these figures were some of the babies' dolls, especially the twin sets. Unfortunately, there were at least 3 choking incidents with 2 involving death. So this is quite a serious issue. Now, obviously, as we've talked about many times, Sylvanian families / Calico Critters, this toy includes tons of teeny tiny pieces. Like basically 90% of this toy is a choking hazard. With these specific incidents, I think it was because very, very young children got a hold of these on accident. And because these pieces were baby bottles and pacifiers, they naturally put them in or near their mouth, either out of habit or because they were pretending. Like I said, both of the children were under the age of 3, which is probably what saved Epic from getting into even more trouble because the toy is labeled for children 3+. But recalling 3.2 million units, and it was so many because these pacifier and bottle accessories were sold in various sets for over 10 years. I mean, that's no small task. It's no small responsibility. So now, of course, most toy companies, especially those as large as Epic and ones that have been around for as long as they have, will experience a recall, unfortunately. It's not uncommon, but it's also not great publicity either. And the legal and financial ramifications can be serious. So it does make me wonder, perhaps a portion of this notice to consumers that Epic posted in December of 2024, maybe it's mostly just them sort of covering themselves legally, like basically making a proper paper trail that shows that they've taken some kind of action in reminding consumers that handmade items that haven't gone through the same safety vetting, I'm thinking specifically with clothes like little buttons, certain types of buttons, the way things are attached to clothes for dolls, a lot of these things have to go through very strict safety measures. So I don't know. I just kind of think that even though clothing in general is not overly dangerous from what we think, I do think they maybe have a legitimate point. Are they actually super, super concerned about consumer safety, or are they just trying to sort of cover themselves legally? I don't know. But remember the Japanese toy safety standards mark that they had to get in the 80s, or any of the other standard safety standard marks that they've had to adhere to sell in North America or in Europe or elsewhere. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. Just ask anyone looking to make or sell a toy. Even as a retailer, there's some responsibility there. So I think that them pointing out that these handmade clothes haven't gone through the same vetting has some legitimacy. However, toward the end of the notice, when they begin to talk about their second concern about copyright infringement, I feel like things get a little complicated. Now, while there is a problem, of course, of mass-produced knockoff Sylvanians, as we've already talked about, almost all of these handmade clothes are not this, okay? They are not being mass-produced. Now, Epic has produced some official DIY Sylvanian clothing books, only in Japanese, as far as I could find. And I guess some of the clothes that had been being sold were from these official books. Is this then copyright infringement? Probably, or at least somewhat. Is it copyright infringement if they're also using the pictures from the books to sell the clothes? Then yes, absolutely. That's copyright infringement. However, I just feel like probably the vast majority of these things being sold, they seem to be unique designs. Okay, they're one-offs or very low quantity, and some of the designs are extremely niche. Many of them are heavily detailed and of super high quality. And at a time when it's hard to buy official clothes because Epic doesn't sell just the clothes very often, and when they do, it's seems to only be in Japan, and also they produce in such low quantity. It's no wonder people can't get their hands on the official stuff, and so it's no wonder that consumers become very excited when they find things on Etsy. Do many of the listings often use, on Etsy or whatever, use the Sylvanian families or Calico Critters name, sometimes the logos, and obviously the dolls to model them? Yes. So is this getting into problematic things with copyright? Maybe. Many people on Reddit have talked about the fan community maybe coming up with some kind of code word that can be used when selling and buying custom clothes that are fit specifically for Sylvanian families. Because maybe then the makers can better protect themselves. Some have suggested, quote, 10-inch doll, or I think the other one was, quote, small flocked animal figure as possible code words. I don't know. I'm kind of like tempted to sit down and brainstorm and come up with something really funny. So is Epic really helping themselves here, though? I mean, beyond them making sure that their stance is clear about these custom clothes not going through the same safety vetting and at least reminding consumers of this, especially if they're buying these things for children. Okay, fine, they've done that. But unless they're going to suddenly put more effort into making and selling more accessible clothes and also perhaps reversing the current trajectory of seemingly using just more cheaper fabrics and lower quality stuff, then really I think they ought to see how much brand value and engagement that they are getting from these creators that are making custom clothes. Or else, I mean, they're going to run the risk of devaluing its most important community. So what's the answer here? Where's the line? You know, what should a company do to not only protect its assets, but also the consumers and themselves, but also not strangle the imagination that they say is so important to their toy? Especially when the bad actors are sometimes mixed into the good. It's a little bit blurry sometimes sorting out who's doing an okay thing that's just using a lot of their creativity and who is just trying to copy something and make a buck. I don't think the answer is an easy one. I think the line shifts and is probably different for everyone and every company. For example, the Sylvanian parodies, right? Going back to Instagram and TikTok, they're not just important for freedom of expression, but also to be a balancing image. They combat the straight-laced, perfect, homogenous, idealistic, and frankly heteronormative utopian image. It's an image a lot of us find comforting, of course, but I think most of us can also probably see where it can be somewhat harmful too. You know, if we didn't see that there are a lot of ways to play with Sylvanians and a lot of different kinds of people from all walks of life collect and play with them. We need to see that. And that also goes for custom clothes makers. Maybe your Sylvanian needs a punk rock vest. Maybe you want your critter to wear a beautiful, unique Korean hanbok for the Chuseok holiday. And maybe you should be able to make and sell these things online, because when will fans ever have reasonable access to these types of things through official routes? But on the other hand, without drawing the line somewhere, without intellectual property rights and the mechanisms and ability to defend them, creativity can actually, in the end, be stifled because there is no guarantee that your creation can be protected. I hope that perhaps with a name change on the social media handles and perhaps stopping the unauthorized ads and sponsorships, Sylvanian drama in whatever form and with whatever name, I hope she might continue. And for the custom clothes makers, and with, you know, the truly unique designs and the high quality and the beautiful vision, I hope they too can continue to create and maybe even recoup some of their costs by being able to sell to others. I hope that Epic takes the time to differentiate between the truly greedy bootleggers and all of the other makers who bring authentic vibrancy to the brand and the community. I wish all of these imaginative creators Godspeed. But what about the unsanctioned media that led me to plan this podcast? The thing that kind of threw me over the edge and finally got me to actually sit down and plan out the episode? Will that creator be safe? It wasn't Sylvanian drama that brought me to or brought me so deeply into the Sylvanian universe, it was a different piece of media. And yes, now of course I'm wondering, will that creator be safe? It's a bit hard to know with Epic, but I wanted to put it on the record that it was a short, literally 30-second animation that made me a Sylvanian fan. As far as I can find, there have been 4 of these little gems made at this point, and in case you're worried that I am severely biased against 3D animation, these are all animated with CG, apparently made in the rendering program Blender. In these animations, the dystopian Matrix-esque world is populated by furry little animals that we would definitely recognize at this point. And so once again, we get that interesting mix of cute and adorable and innocent, along with something that's, well, not. In January of this year, January 2025, I stumbled upon an animation simply called Phone Call. It was posted to an Instagram account called Jacob C. Rivera, and I was instantly hooked. The fuzzy critter is a bit of a mix as far as like which animal family it's from. I don't think it's from a specific family. The animal itself kind of looks like a mix between a rabbit and a cat, and the character is sort of living in this, or at least working in this corporate hellscape of a building, which in the animation is called Sylvania 17. And here, I assume the Sylvanians are expected to work, and the animation begins with them being asked to report to their designated workstations. And they all work in departments like Acorn Analytics and Buried Distribution. The animation really gets going actually just as it ends with one of the characters getting a phone call on this like metallic pink phone. It's like really like a shocking prop. It really reminds me of the first phone that I had in college, I think. Anyway, on the phone, there is a caller saying that they need to get out of there quick because the ministry knows. Everything then turns super frantic and kind of thrilling for a few seconds, and then the animation ends. And I don't know, the unsettling and futuristic sounds, along with like the excellent pacing and animation style, it had me watching this literally 10 times in a row, like right then, standing at my kitchen counter.
Attention, inhabitants of Sylvanian 17. Time is now.
I had this weird reaction after seeing it because I couldn't quite place the little characters at the time. I knew they looked familiar, but I didn't know why. So then, of course, after that, I went hunting and suddenly found myself inside the Sylvanian universe in their 40th anniversary year, no less. And of course, as you probably know, there were mountains and mountains of content to enjoy, and I just loved it all, whether it was sanctioned or unsanctioned. And that's when I knew that the Trinket podcast I had been already thinking about starting, that I had to begin with this. Anyway, please immediately go find these. I'll put a link in the show notes, and hopefully the link continues to work. And please enjoy watching them over and over as many times as I did. There are a few of them. They're all shorter than a minute and only loosely connected. The original one I watched I found on Instagram, but there are also a YouTube and TikTok pages with various music. They just must take an incredible amount of work to plan and write and style and animate. So I really hope that the creator finds the energy and will to keep going. Oh yeah, I should maybe mention that while these animations are not overly explicit or graphic in any way, really, these are clearly and we know this through some subtle imagery, these things are clearly meant for adults, not children. So there's my little disclaimer. And speaking of audience, perhaps the bigger question here is, will Epic let them continue? After these animations have over 1 million views at this point. The only overt reference to Sylvanian families or calico critters, other than the obvious inspiration that the creator took for his character models, and there's also a quick reference to Sylvanian families in the phone call animation. There are some hashtags on the first 3 that are posted to TikTok, and I think YouTube as well. But there's nothing in the video titles or the social media handles, at least right now, that blatantly state that these are Sylvanians. So, yeah. And that's very much unlike the Sylvanian drama content, which, use the actual name in its account handle. Obviously, there are tons of people who already guess what these characters are meant to resemble and catch the references. In the thousands of comments, you can see many references to our furry little figurines. But my guess is that because the creator hasn't gone and animated like a literal commercial like Sylvanian drama had, that they are probably going to leave him alone. At least let's hope so. Because like so many of the commenters on his videos, I really do need like 8 seasons and probably a movie and a couple sequels to satisfy my hunger for this dystopian critter story. Once again, these animations are CG, so I guess this just proves that it's not the style of animation that truly draws me in, but the uniqueness and quality of the story and pacing. So to conclude, I just have this to say, please, Epic, be nice to these creators, all of them. Let's please somehow find a compromise so that way they can continue making their awesome stuff, because we really do need them. And ultimately, they promote your toy line and bring a greater diversity of fans to this universe. But wait! Lest you think that these are the only unusual things to have been made in regards to Sylvanian families or calico critters, there are a couple other oddball creations that have come out over the years that I haven't talked about yet. And guess what? These are ones that were created by Epic themselves, or at least sanctioned by them. So let's talk about some. The first one is a product called Storytelling Figures. These are actually animatronic figures. They are from Tomy in the US, and as far as I can find, there were 4 of these made. They were called Star Performers. And then there were 2 more that were also animatronic, but they danced, and they were called Dancin' Performers. So yes, as I've said, they're all animatronic, meaning they move around. You put batteries in them and they move. The Star Performers are 7-inch dolls, which is about 18 or so centimeters. And there are 2 bears, 1 brown, 1 gray, and also 2 rabbits, 1 brown and 1 gray. The rabbits have moving mouths and ears, and the bears have moving mouths and eyes, which, not gonna lie, a little bit creepy for me. There are also 2 smaller versions. They're only about 5.5 inches tall, about 14 centimeters, and they just kind of stand there and twist their waists, and they have like these kind of loose arms so that they kind of move as the characters twist. They're called Dancin' Performers, but it's quite the subtle dance, subtle form of dance in my opinion. So these dolls are sound activated, and they come with a cassette tape. Yes, definitely launched in the 80s. Basically, they would move and lip sync to the sound and music. However, this isn't like a Teddy Ruxpin doll, okay? You don't get to put the tape in the back or anything like that. You play the tape on any machine, and the storytelling bears will do their thing. In fact, you could also basically play any music or make any sound, and if it's picked up by the toy's microphone, then the bear or rabbit will begin to dance. I'm assuming these were made close to 1987 to the original launch because I found a page from a 1987 Sears catalog. Do those even come out anymore? Sears catalog. And it listed these animatronic figures as requesting 2 AA batteries and selling at $19.99, which PS, $19.99 US money, that's like $60 in today's money. Yeah, wow. So working star performers are a little hard to come by, but they do pop up on eBay and places like Facebook Marketplace, and they're usually around 75 to $100, at least as of summer 2025. So who knows, maybe you can get lucky with someone cleaning out their garage. And if you have the funds, they are definitely a quirky little gem to add to your collections if you collect vintage Sylvanian products. I'll put another disclaimer though, which I kind of alluded to. If you are like freaked out by Five Nights at Freddy type of things or like Chucky dolls, these are probably not the product for you. Okay, just a little side note there. Another random thing I found was something called the Mario no Fotopi Sylvanian Families disc. Mario no Fotopi was an N64 game. Actually, it was kind of more like a creative tool than a game. One Vice reporter described it as a mix between like Photoshop and Mario Paint. So the game cartridge also included like a slot where you could essentially buy franchise variants, and in 1998 a Sylvanian Families disc was produced. This was not so much like an intensely weird thing, as much of it is just kind of a mystery because I was totally unable to find any footage of this game or photo maker in use. If anybody has some or know where I can watch it, please send me a link. Another thing that I couldn't find any recording for but really would love to hear is a 1990 phone number that you could call and then hear a Sylvanian family story read to you. Like you would just call it and then a recording would start and it would be a nice little Sylvanian family story. So yes, amazing. I might need to get a little bit better with my Japanese internet searching skills and maybe I'll be able to find something on there. Next, we have the McDonald's collabs. I suppose this one isn't surprising, but practically from the earliest of days, Sylvanian Families has been doing collaborations with McDonald's, in Japan, of course. McDonald's restaurants have been open in Japan since the 70s. The children's Happy Meal not being created until, I think, the late 70s. And actually, fun fact, the Happy Meal was basically originally created in Guatemala by a woman who, with her husband, helped to run the McDonald's franchises there. So that's like pretty groovy. Although it's been over a decade since I've eaten at a McDonald's, I did grow up in America. So of course I had my fair share of Happy Meal and Happy Meal toys. And really, even though I'm not a person who goes to McDonald's anymore, I could totally do like an entire episode just on Happy Meal toy trinkets. There have been many types of McDonald's Sylvanian releases over the years. Often it's something more like simple, I guess, where you'd get a voucher and then have to take that voucher to the store to redeem a special figure or accessory or even like a DVD full of cartoon episodes. The Sylvanian Happy Meal toys are now, of course, coveted around the world, like a lot of Japanese exclusive McDonald's stuff. And after any kind of release, they usually quickly appear on resale sites. And surprise, surprise, you're going to pay a pretty penny for them. Now, I bet you didn't know that Sylvanian Families did a collab with an architecture firm. I am not joking. In 2006, Kawana Kajima Construction, which is a civil engineering and architectural firm in Japan, announced the sale of a wooden house called Sylvanian House, modeled after one of the most famous Sylvanian family's house silhouettes, the popular house on the hill, which is also similar to the Hilltop Manor, the Oakwood Manor House, and the deluxe Village House. Apparently, the construction company's president saw one of the Sylvanian houses in a toy store and thought, it would be fun to live in a house like that. Because of everything being in Japanese, it was difficult for me to see what exactly became of this licensing project. Like, who would buy these and where would they ultimately be built? In Nagano Prefecture, a subsidiary of the construction company built at least one model, from what I was able to find. Pictures on a 2010 Japanese blog show a cozy green-roofed house with also surrounding gardens. Although the company originally said that they hoped to sell like 10 of these in their first year, as I mentioned, have no idea how many of them were actually purchased or built. But I did find an article that said the company offered 5 different versions of this house with lots of options to customize. So other than the model, who knows how many were actually built and what they eventually looked like. From the old blog pictures, I know that at least one of the rooms on the first floor was designed to be a tatami room, which, oh man, that would be so awesome to recreate one of those in the toy houses. But honestly, no matter what ended up happening or how popular this one was, it's definitely probably the licensing deal that makes me like the most bemused and actually kind of happy. Like, even grown men who are CEOs are moved by the coziness and whimsy of Sylvanian families. Okay, so I could seriously go on and on. There really was seemingly no end to my research. There was no bottom. Every time I thought my notes were complete about all of the sanctioned and unsanctioned things that have come out over the years, there was some new detail to add. Like the 2023 Japanese manga published by Kodansha in Japanese about 2 high school girls who become unlikely friends and bond over their Sylvanian families. And how about the Marvel comics? Yes, Marvel. There was even a set of comics put out by Marvel in the 80s in the UK. The comics came with a free Panini album with the stickers so that kids who weren't into football, soccer, which is usually what the Panini books and stickers were for, they could then get into collecting. Actually, several official stickers have been produced. The designs of most of them are basically just like photos of figures, sometimes with the figures on their own, sometimes in small dioramas or scenes. The official sticker books are actually pretty cute with lots and lots of stickers and some pages where you can create little scenes with them. There have also been tons of one-off stickers and sticker sheets given out as like freebies at special events or at different toy shops for spending a certain amount of money, especially in Japan. And of course, you'll find plenty of unlicensed stickers and stationery, much of it ridiculously cute and also funny. It's all floating around on the internet, but you didn't hear that from me. I'm actually kind of surprised that there isn't more non-figure and sets merchandise available. Like, yes, okay, over the years, you can find all the things that you'd expect to find, like lunch pails and mugs, coin purses, t-shirts. You know, I think they even did a collab recently with Uniqlo, and there's lots of non-sticker stationery type stuff like pencils and file folders and letter sets. But these are quite difficult to find, even if they aren't vintage. In general, I assume that most of these things are produced in low quantity, and never intended to be in stock forever, which maybe makes sense. I mean, they are focusing on their actual product, the dolls and the play sets. But still, especially with merchandise that would easily go along with the toy, like, I don't know, beautifully produced storybooks, like, I'm kind of surprised that there isn't more. I think even the couple of books that they have, it's just there's only a couple of them, and they're kind of slapped together just from animation frames from some of the YouTube videos, as I've mentioned previously. I can totally imagine a beautiful hardback book of like holiday stories with beautiful photography or unique illustrations. I mentioned that there was like, I think 4 or 5 illustrators in that Mo magazine that would do a lovely job. And I think kids would love it as a bedtime story or a book for kids who are reluctant readers. Or what about an elaborate seek and find book? I mean, there's so much more potential to be even more immersed. Maybe Epic simply doesn't have the resources to put as much detailed and like quality effort into their secondary media and merchandise. Perhaps they are just rightly focusing on the figures and sets. And so when it comes to the other stuff, there just isn't much thought to produce it on a permanent basis. Maybe for this, it's just better to do a sort of wide smattering of products every now and then and only just like in very limited runs. So I guess that means if you like the hunt, and maybe that's one of the best things about Sylvanians is that you can, buy all the common stuff right off the shelf. Or if you enjoy the thrill of the hunt, well, then you can have a blast looking for the sometimes rare and super limited runs of mugs and sticker sheets and the Christmas letter writing sets and the keychains and puzzles and calendars and postcards and what else? The special Kabaya candy mini diorama sets, which no, I didn't talk about them, but yes, I love them. And all the special magazines that have been produced, and the Sylvanian Whipple crafting sets, and the 1980s board game, and on and on and on. So, yeah, you see what I mean? Like, I have to stop somewhere, even when there really is no end in sight. And maybe that's exactly the current reality of this toy. They are a powerhouse. They're alive and well, and have been alive and well for kind of a long time. This year, 2025, Epic is in the throes of celebrating their 40th anniversary of the toy line's original Japan release. While most of the celebrations and releases and special lotteries are understandably happening in Japan, fans across the world are staying glued to their phones and computers, scouting social media for information and special releases. There's even a 40th anniversary election going on right now, where once a day you can vote for your favorite family from 50 different candidates. Whichever family wins first place will apparently serve as ambassador for the toy line for all of 2026. So, wait, does this mean that our dear Freya Chocolate is going to be dethroned? Freya at this point is, of course, iconic, but also perhaps it wouldn't be so bad to see some of the other characters step into the big spotlight.
Sylvanian family. They come from far and near.
So who are the people buying these figures now in 2025? Well, as I've already mentioned, these toys have spread far beyond just being popular with children and nostalgic collectors. Now, after the world-shifting experience of the COVID pandemic and the rise of the whole, kidulting trend, Sylvanians really seem to have solidified themselves in the adult toy collecting and trinket lovers space. I've seen some stats that claim at least 25% of toy sales are attributed to adults buying the toys for themselves or other adults in their life, like no children involved at all. I've honestly lost count at the number of stories that I've read on places like Reddit from people who recently began collecting simply because a family member or a friend bought them a Sylvanian Families or Calico Critters blind bag. And while it's probably impossible to quantify or truly know, the launch of Sylvanian Families blind bags in particular has really only boosted their popularity, just like with a lot of different toys. Some people claim that they're inner child is being healed by collecting and playing with these toys. And yeah, I can definitely see that. Kidulting in general is often seen as a way for adults to manage or kind of help them through difficult mental health afflictions. Experts wholeheartedly complain. I mean, you can just go on the internet for like 30 seconds and you can find experts that claim that nostalgia does have a positive impact on people's moods. And I know that to be true of my own life. Nowadays, you can find lots and lots of content by people who are doing these types of videos, and then also doing videos that are more involved, like they're customizing their figures. So they're not just collecting, or they maybe begin collecting and then they move into customizing them with special clothing or accessories, or even making buildings for them. And really all of that rides this interesting line between play and art. Others on the internet claim that kidulting and collecting things like Sylvanians is just sort of inevitable in a world obsessed with consumerism. You can also just spend, 30 seconds on the internet and find countless essays or Reddit posts or whatever else about people talking about the problems of capitalism and consumerism and tying them to the Sylvanians or another similar toy. Are Sylvanians just yet one more addiction to distract and numb people, so they can further avoid dealing with their problems? I don't know. Are adults actually playing with this toy, or is it just all about collecting and displaying them? Or I don't know, there are people that just hide, the mint in box product in the climate controlled storage unit. I think the lines are quite blurry here, and this is probably not the only episode of this podcast that I'm going to be mentioning this, especially since some people claim that all of this, especially the blind bags, I guess in particular, it's just another form of gambling, that sort of dopamine rush that anyone gets when there's a chance at winning big. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the videos of people like losing their minds over like the Blooming Baby Friends blind bag series or the Forest series. I mean, really any blind bag series. There are then, often resold for incredibly inflated prices. So a gambling kick that's then mixed with the rush to attempt to make some money. Is that what this is all about, really? I don't know. I just kind of assume that there is a little bit of everything going on here. There are some that are just doing it for fun and sort of healthy nostalgia engagement. And there's some where it's wholesome and absolutely helpful to them. And then there are yet other people who are simply gripped by addiction, or are just attempting to make a quick buck with a good blind bag find, right? Part of this is because it's just easier than ever to get into collecting these little guys. Many shops that didn't previously carry Sylvanian families, including shops that typically specialize in collectibles or designer toys or other pop culture merchandise, they're now carrying some form of this product in their store. And people, both adults and kids, they bring their favorite Sylvanian families' figures with them everywhere, in their pockets, and in their purses, in their bags. They have photo shoots with them, sometimes super elaborate ones with sets and dioramas, but there are also tons and tons of just simple selfies or pictures snapped with their favorite figurine held up, in the foreground of some vacation shot. I mean, really, even Bill Nye, and no, not that Bill Nye, the science guy, not that one, all you 80s babies, but Bill Nye, the British actor. He's been rumored to be a fan after he literally brought a Sylvanian rabbit with him to the Oscars in 2023. Like, he had photos taken of it with him. Now, apparently, he later claimed that he had just brought the rabbit just because he had basically promised his granddaughter to babysit the rabbit. But still, I'm not sure that he would have done this with, another less charming toy. Although if Wikipedia is to be believed, he's apparently now a fan of Pokemon after he was in the Detective Pikachu movie. And there's no denying that there is quite a bit of overlap in the sort of Venn diagram of Sylvanian families and Pokemon fans. And of course, there is no end to the everyday fan creator content on the internet that everyone can enjoy, whether you're healing your inner child or just having a good time or simply addicted. There are tons of funny little stop motion animations made by adults and kids. Many of them are more creative and interesting than some of the short stop motion animations that have come out on the official YouTube pages in the last couple of years. And of course, you'll find no end to videos on the unboxing videos, the blind bag openings, hauls, setups, simple short edits of funny reels with AI voiceover or videos with audio pulled from some other franchise as a funny little mashup, or popular music. There's these videos where someone sets up a couple of Sylvanians on a vinyl record, kind of like a mini scene, and then plays the records with the figures spinning around on the vinyl. So simple, but kind of endearing. And yes, you betcha. All over Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, you'll find memes galore. All of this, yes, it's both fun and amazing. And yeah, can't lie, also overwhelming too. Seriously, guys, set a timer for yourself when scrolling Sylvanian videos, because your time will disappear in a flash. Although there seems to be more that Epic hopes to accomplish with their global strategy in the coming years, this is a truly global brand. And as far as I can tell, Sylvanians are sold on every continent except Antarctica. Although I wouldn't be surprised if someone has brought their critter with them on an Antarctic cruise. If this has happened, please someone send me pictures. Anyway, according to Epic's website, other than their headquarters in Tokyo, they have management bases in the Netherlands and in China, manufacturing bases in China and Laos, and sales and distribution companies in UK, Germany, Spain, France, Italy, Brazil, obviously the USA, also China, and Malaysia, and Indonesia. And actually, I know I've talked a lot about Japan, but Sylvanian families has a huge presence in much of the rest of Asia, which is probably not surprising if they have multiple sales offices in the region. For example, in Korea, there's a large permanent exhibition in a toy museum down in Jeju. There are summer collaborations with cafes featuring exclusive merchandise. In Shanghai, you can find elaborate pop-ups with lucky draws and limited edition keychains. In Hong Kong, you can get your nails done with tiny paintings of Sylvanian families characters. In Malaysia, you'll find those big mega figures, the big ones that you can take pictures with. They're everywhere, constantly being promoted at local toy shops and malls. Do most of the places still, all of these places, they still use Western marketing? Yes. Most of the regional Instagram accounts are still kind of awkwardly flooded with pictures of mostly non-Asian kids playing with these toys. I assume that the marketing photos from the big markets of the USA and Europe are just kind of getting repurposed. But are there fans in Asia just as rabid as the fans in the rest of the world? Yes, absolutely. It would be great to see more pictures of them. It really is kind of one of the awesome things about this franchise, that the passion for these cute, fuzzy animals, it kind of just links everyone together no matter where you're from on the globe. And apparently, even after everything that they've accomplished, Epic's global strategy, like most toy companies, their goal is still to continue to expand that fan base. According to the CEO, after his success with introducing Sylvanian families in the Middle East, at least in a few places, and this was in a place that he said that he was hesitant about whether or not the toy would be accepted, but was happily proved wrong. He realized after that that the toy could really be introduced into so many more countries than they initially thought. Even 10 years ago, in the mid-2010s, Epic was beginning to make plans about trying to expand their reach into places like North Africa. And today you can buy Sylvanians in Egypt, in addition to South Africa. And who knows? Who knows which countries will be added in the next 10 years? So I guess their global strategy hasn't ended or finished up. It's just simply shifted focus a bit. Now, all of these expanding markets, the zealous fan hype, the enthusiastic hunt and consumer spending, the growing collections around the world, is it a good thing? A bad thing? Well, for now, I think I'll just leave the answer to the psychologists and the culture critics and the YouTube video essays to answer that one. For me, I just know I've enjoyed reading about the history of the toy and all of the hard work that the company and also fans have done over the years to make Sylvanian families and calico critters what it is today. So, where do I stand now? My mango milk is gone. It's empty. I have a few plum chips left. Should I buy a Sylvanian family set? I mean, surely after months now of off and on research, I've literally been working on this outline, I guess, for 5 months now. Shouldn't the Sylvanian spell be wearing off? I mean, Epic is kind of annoying me with their lawsuits, but also as a creator myself, I value copyright and trademark laws. Things are a bit messy, complicated, a little gray, which is not something that we like in the Sylvanian universe most of the time. But in my heart of hearts, I just know that I've gone down the Sylvanian rabbit hole. Yes, I'm deep in the forest, you could say deep in the valley. Even as I wrote my notes, I knew that my birthday was looming. And it kind of felt like maybe it was time. Maybe it was time for me to go and pick a set for myself. Which ones would I want? I realize now that I have, yes, actually been making a mental list of everything that I might want. Number one, the latte cat family. Simple, they're modern, they're super easy to find and affordable. And also for me, cats are the best animal. And they are the largest sort of subset of my trinket collection. And the latte cat family in general, I think they're just like perfectly molded in their clothes. They're not too plain. I'm just dying for the dad's bow tie. It's so cute. But the kicker, they come with tiny cups of coffee and a chocolate waffle accessory. So yeah, that's a bullseye for me. I definitely need that set. You probably have an idea by now what strikes a chord with me. So, with all my trinkets, I'm not a purist. I'm not a completionist. So I typically just have an immediate and visceral, maybe emotional response to any kind of trinket that I encounter. And yes, there are definitely figures and pieces that Epic has put out that still make me shudder even after, looking at these things for hours and hours. Of course, I don't begrudge anyone else having them in their collection, but like the ones like the hedgehogs, I'm sorry, I still have a hard time looking at these ones. It's just super difficult not for my mind not to see like 80s hairband. My parents were super young when they had me, so I was exposed to this hairstyle like in full force. They even cut my hair in a mullet style for like the first 7 years of my life. I assume teasing my hair into like a 80s rock hairband poof was just too much work, and so the mullet was the next best thing. What's another one that I have a hard... Oh, the ponies. Okay, so this is a problem with any anthropomorphic world. Like, where do you draw the line at what gets to act like a human? It's really hard to look at the farmer's cart and pony set. So here you have a pony, okay? And it has a saddle and a bridle, and it's like eating hay, without its hands or hooves or whatever. It's standing on all fours like any horse you might see in real life. But then next to it, you have this rabbit standing next to it. And the rabbit has like clothes, like full set of clothes on, and is selling produce as a farmer. One picture I saw had the rabbit swapped out for a cow figure, and like having a cow and a pony next to each other where one is clearly anthropomorphized and the other is basically like a beast of burden, my brain kind of broke. And listen, things get even worse if you look at the figures in the mainly pony family, because unlike the pony that comes with the farmer's cart, these ponies are actual figures and have the standard Sylvanian body, like standing on 2 feet, wearing clothes, and apparently owning and running a salon in the Sylvanian village. So, yeah, my brain kind of has a hard time meshing these realities. Another problem that I still have is really understanding what kind of animal I'm looking at sometimes. Like, is this a fox or is it a chihuahua? Is it an otter or a meerkat? Or, I don't know, something else. Maybe this is just my age. It's really hard for me not to ask this question now. Like, maybe it's just how old I am. And while I'm perfectly happy not to be 20 years old anymore, I do know that those 20 extra years, maybe something is going over my head with the look of some of these figures. But you know what's not going over my head? The burger wagon. Yes, this is on my list for sure. I'm scrolling through some modern sets right now that are currently available at toy stores, and really the burger wagon is the one I want as far as outside of like the family figure sets. It really hits that spot inside of me that used to love Transformers as a kid. Also, this set kind of just feels like a big deal. So, I don't know, it would be a little bit weird if I bought it as my first Sylvanians thing. Like, maybe I'll buy it down the road if I truly become a collector. Yeah, like after I have a few critters on my shelf already. And by the way, yes, I know, okay, the burger wagon is also problematic because why are you selling burgers in a universe where the Buttercup family, which are cows, exist? Listen, I'm not a vegan, but I've decided that the Sylvanian universe has to be vegan because if not, we've got some problems. Like big dystopian problems.
Oh, this is bad!
Dad, what's wrong?
It looks like I left the food for dinner at home!
As far as accessories go, the breakfast set or the homemade pancake set, yes, that is definitely something I would set up on my bookshelf. As far as older releases, like if I had all the money in the world and all the time to search them out, I will probably always crave the canal boat because of all the little details, and maybe because I live close to a bunch of canals and often kind of wistfully look at all the houseboats and have this intense feeling of wanting to become friends with the people who live on them. Others on my list of sort of old release desires include, of course, a ton of those Japanese exclusive releases, the anniversary ones especially, like the Japanese style room set, or any of the yukata party kimono sets. Those are all amazing. So many details, and they're super unique. They'll probably always be on my wish list. But of course, lots of flare sets too, especially all of the sailor stuff really appeals to me, even though I don't go on boats that often. I think I just like any set that is like highly themed, highly specific, very kind of striking and unique. Those are usually the things that appeal to me. Oh gosh, yeah, but I'm looking now. Oh, it's just really hard not to look at some of the newer ones that are easily commercially available. The popcorn cart, the donut wagon. Ooh, the original ice cream van. I like that a lot better than the newer one. Okay. These are all the sets and accessories that I would just love to have. I say the original ice cream van because I'm sorry, but the shape of the new one just looks like totally bonkers to me. The pastel colors are a little bit much. And so I'm going to do like one last sort of major side quest here before we wrap up our episode. Let's talk about the recent look of Sylvanians. And let me use this example of the ice cream van. The original vintage one was this like creamy off-white and sort of shaped like you would think an ice cream van would be shaped, except a little more like 1950s vintagey. The new one is, I don't even know what the shape is, very bulbous, I don't know, and super pastel colored. I also have a suspicion that the older one is probably of better quality, as during my research it was hard to not see that the general consensus is that the quality of plastic and manufacturing has gone down a bit over the years. Now, I'll be fair and say that, in my opinion, this is probably true of almost any toy that has been around for as long as Sylvanians have. Like, have you compared today's Barbie with a Barbie from the 80s or early 90s? The new ones feel much lighter. They're like more hollow and flimsy or like brittle. I'm not really sure what it is, just lower quality. And it's interesting to look at some of these conversations about quality online because they are actually quite nuanced, which frankly is a breath of fresh air when it comes to the internet. Many people say that they've seen the quality of the buildings and furniture go down, while also the quality often of the flocking and the figures themselves and the clothes have gone up. And this leads me to think about what is the future of Sylvanians. Yes, of course, more figures and sets. I'm sure there'll be more animations and movies, like the movie released in Japan in 2023, which was later released in the UK, and I believe Ireland in the same year, and has been released elsewhere now. There will always be more media, and perhaps one day Epic will maybe even bless me with a super quirky, unique, high-quality stop-motion story. I'm not holding my breath, though. But what about the style? Like, what about the actual toy? Like most collectors, I've noticed the massive trend of the newest pieces being intensely pastel. They're also kind of intensely shiny and sparkly and kind of babyish. I have a hard time imagining an adult male CEO of a construction and architecture firm looking at the most recent building releases and going, yeah, let's model one of our houses after that. Not that adult male CEOs, are the marketing target, but I think that the old, like more cottagecore design trend had more broad appeal. And just so you know, I'm not the only one who thinks this. The world's previous world record holder for the most Sylvanian families memorabilia collected also seemed to have agreed with me. Many dedicated fans know that one of the most famous Sylvanian collectors, a beloved leader in the community, Jack Batch, the owner and operator of the now removed website sylvaniancollector.net, he quit collecting in 2023 because of the new design direction. He cited a few different reasons for calling it quits, but the first reason that he listed on his website when he was putting up his notice for not collecting anymore was the new direction of the brand, which he perceived as, quote, too plastic, girly, and pink. And sadly, as shown by my dislike for the newer ice cream truck, I would probably have to agree with him, at least to some degree. But what do I know, okay? I'm what you might call, I guess, an elder millennial, or I don't know. Maybe everything I'm saying is predictable. It's predictable that I would be grumpy about the new direction. And while it's still true that these are essentially a toy made for young elementary school children, as I've said before, like I said, the Epic CEO has said that part of the uniqueness of Sylvanians is that they have broad market appeal and that they appeal to adults, not just children. So perhaps the focus on pink and the purple pastels and like the baby figurines, is it just a trend? And like any trend, it will kind of come and go. Despite their adult market, Epic is probably still looking at what young children are loving right now. They are attempting to stay relevant to not just a Japanese audience, but they're now looking at a fully global audience, while also trying to stay true to their roots. And actually, if you look at some of their 40th anniversary special releases, you can see that maybe Epic is trying to balance the pastel baby style sets with also releases of figures dressed in elaborate fancy clothing, often in more mature colors like deep reds and maroons and blues. There are lots of poofy dresses and bow ties and ribbons and gold jewelry and accents. For example, you can buy a special chocolate rabbit family set that includes the 11 main members of the family, mother, father, older sister Stella, brother Coco, of course Freya, and also 3 babies, and then even the 3 newborn babies on top of that. They all have coordinating outfits that are sort of this gold with dusty pink and some maroons and chocolate browns. Very elegant indeed. There has also been a significant focus on the Town series of Sylvanian families, which has been billed by Epic as a more grown-up series that offers a more elegant and sophisticated style than that of Sylvanian Village. That's language that's on their actual website. There's a grand department store as a part of the Town series. There's fashion boutique and a salon and a fancy restaurant. Lots of extravagant and ornamental clothes and upscale furniture. And all of this sort of conveys this richly carved and lacquered wood and silk upholstered, furniture. This is high class city living. While definitely not as cottagecore, feeling, I think still a lot of people do appreciate the darker color palettes as an alternative to the kawaii colors of the baby's fairy tower and the amusement park and the balloon playhouse and all of those sets. Actually, when I list them like that, it does kind of seem like Epic is trying to design new sets for kind of basically everyone. Sure, everything probably feels intensely pastel and maybe a bit cheap because of the flood of babies' blind bags, probably. But I don't think they're totally leaving their older aesthetic totally behind. In fact, if you are really hankering for some mature, elegant product, and also even something Japanese themed, which I know has also been asked for by many collectors, well then, why not drop $1,000 on the Yoshitoku collaboration? Yoshitoku is an old ornamental doll company in Japan, and in this set you'll get 2 chocolate rabbit parents clad in, beautiful multi-layered traditional clothing. They truly do look stunning. You should definitely look for pictures of these figures. There's beautiful kimono and like court attire, and they come with this beautiful display. Apparently there's also a more affordable version that doesn't come with the display and some of the things, but you're still going to be dropping nearly $300 to get these. So yeah, Epic maybe does seem to be reaching for a lot of different things right now, trying to cater to many demographics, while also trying to remain the traditional Japanese company that they are. Despite all the recent pastel stuff, I really do think that Epic has done an amazing job of staying true to their roots. The figures and the essence of the toy, I think, has not changed in 40 years. The basic figure molds have barely been altered. I mean, you really have to get out your measuring tape and measure down into millimeters and break the toys open and have a look inside to tell that they have changed. That's quite an accomplishment. As I've mentioned earlier, you just look at My Little Pony or Littlest Pet Shop. Have you looked at the evolution of these toys, the differences between all of the generations? Yeah, wow. I mean, I bet some legit physical fights have broken out between people who love like Gen 3 MLP and people who swear by Gen 4. And if you compare any of these to the ones that originally came out, well, the differences are plain to like even like a 4-year-old kid. How did Epic make and maintain like such a timeless toy? Maybe it's their Japanese roots, or just and by that I sort of mean the culture that's baked into the company, a culture that tends to revere the past a lot more than the West typically does. Or maybe they just got lucky with a timeless design. Once again, it's probably a combination of all these things. Regardless of how they did it, they have, despite all the crazy twists and turns my research took me, they've made me a legit fan. I can now legitimately say that I understand what this toy line is, and I know the relationship between Sylvanian families and calico critters down to the last publicly available detail. Anyway, and all of this without owning a single figure or accessory myself. I understand a lot about how they've come to be in the current markets around the world, and for the most part, really admire them for it. And so, my fine friends, now there's just one question left. Will I buy my own set? And if so, which one will be the first? I don't know if I can possibly answer this question now, but I can tell you. If someone bought me a blind bag, I promise you, I would, without a doubt, be excited. I'd rip that sucker open, hoping for a baby mushroom or that awesomely weird rock baby from one of the new packs. And, well, that's that. Once again, I'm Jess, and you've been listening to Trinket Picnic. And now my honey plum chips are nearly gone. A few left here. And my drink is gone. And I've got many more gummy candies than I know what to do with now. Thanks again for listening, guys. See you next time. You didn't think I'd leave you without a PS, did you? Especially after finally finishing this 2-part, 4-hour-long deep dive I recorded this past summer. Of course there's a PS from current me here in the beginning of autumn. Number 1, I'm glad to share that Sylvanian Drama, aka Gossip Squirrels, aka now called Mole Town Drama, has posted again. Thank God, this really is the happy ending we've all been wishing for this episode. Number 2, a new robust Sylvanian resource site has been lovingly nurtured, and it is amazing and a treasure trove of info and seemingly becoming better and better every day with new additions. So go check it out at sylvanianresources.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And Number 3? Well, yes, of course. On my birthday, I went to my local toy store. I told myself that I would buy a set, this particular set, if it was there and currently in stock right there. And lo and behold, there it is, right on the shelf, the whole Latte Cat family. There is also a giant Freya, the mega figure, standing nearby inside a little funhouse display, clearly meant for a photo op for very young children. I had my 8-year-old son with me, and with his eyes, he said to me, "Oh, please, Mom, please don't try to get in that little house." Despite him liking My Little Pony and thinking that Sylvanian figures are super cute, he doesn't have much interest in having his own, which honestly is probably just as well for the health of my wallet. So, no, I didn't get in the fun house, but I do buy the Latte Cat family. They all sit on the shelf right behind my desk. They are next to some of my Sumiko Gurashi blind box figures and also an old ceramic turtle that my great-grandmother made decades ago. The Sylvanians seem right at home. And the baby in the family, Mabel, she is dressed in her, yes, pastel greenish blue onesie. And she is, I have to admit, ridiculously cute. I am totally hooked. I just wonder what I might collect next. Bye!